After 18 years traveling the entire world, teaching hundreds and thousands of people, from kids to teenagers, to adults, to entrepreneurs and business owners about goal setting, I've changed my mind about how exactly to do proper goal setting. In fact, I would dare say that majority of people are doing goal setting completely wrong. I'll share with you why. Last year, one of my clients was about to close down his entire coaching business. His conversions were down 37 to 40%. All the methods that used to work for him before didn't work. He was questioning everything. Then we sat down and used the exact goal setting framework I'm going to share with you in this video, and everything changed. In about 3 months, he managed to close his biggest client to date, a client that was worth about close to $150,000. It wasn't his marketing that changed. It wasn't his social media that changed. It was just his mindset and the focus he had towards goals that shifted, and it changed everything in his business. So if you're struggling to make things happen in your business, I want to share with you 2 hidden elements that determine whether whatever you set as a goal happens or it turns into another broken promise and disappointment. These methods are exactly what I review at the coaching programs I have, where people pay upwards of $30,000. I'm going to review all of it for free right here. So grab a pen. Let's make things happen. In order to make our goals happen, we need to interrupt a pattern that happens every single year. Here's a disappointing pattern happens year after year. Most people set goals as a result of the disappointment they feel in November and December. November, December, they didn't achieve the goals they set out for the year. So in January, they write some stuff down and say, for this year, I want it to be different. I want to set some goals. Now, that excitement only carries at best until February. Then they start to forget their goals. They start to slip back into their old ways, do nothing for the rest of the year until feeling that disappointment in November and December again. So we need to interrupt this. How exactly do we interrupt this? We interrupt this very simply by asking a few questions. The first one is to acknowledge what season you are in. Super important question. Most goal setting classes never ever cover this. Now, human beings are not in a linear season, which means you just constantly go up and up and up. It doesn't make sense. You're also not in a standardized season, which means you just go flat like this. Human beings have biorhythms. There's up and there's down, there's up and there's down, there's up and there's down. There are some seasons where it's time to recover. There's some seasons where it's time to rush and make things happen. There's some season where it's time to chill. There's some seasons where you want to have a family. There's some season where you want to make things happen to make up for lost time. When you ask the question what season you are in, you acknowledge the place in time where you are at. What has happened before in your life? Where are you at? What do you want to make happen in the future? So one of the questions I notice when I ask myself what season I'm in is I start to acknowledge what is the energy and what's the flow I'm in. And when I'm able to create goals that match the energy and flow that I'm in, the goals are aligned to who I am. The huge challenge we have is when we are in a different season. So maybe this is a season of family. Maybe it's a time of chilling. Maybe it's a time of recovery. And you set goals that are not matching the season. When that happens, you get frustrated with yourself and you start to have a conflict. Because at some level, you're disappointed in yourself for not making things happen. But on some level also, you're not really in the space to make those goals happen either. So you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So very critical, you ask yourself, what season are you in? Acknowledging that human beings have all kinds of seasons. There's a time to rest, and there's a time to recharge. There's a time to go for things also. Acknowledge what season you're in. So acknowledging what season you're in allows you to be patient with yourself. Now, the next thing we have to do is we have to locate an emotional driver. Super important. An emotional driver is the number one thing that makes goals happen. If your goal has no emotional driver, it will not happen. Why? Because in a day, you have so many things to do. Only things that are urgent and important get shifted up the priority list and they actually happen. So your goals need to have a strong emotion backing it for you to regard it as really, really important. There are different kinds of emotions. Largely can divide it into 2 kinds. There are good emotions and maybe a bit negative emotions. It doesn't really matter. For example, fitness-wise, if somebody said something really negative to you and you want to prove a point, that is an emotional driver. That's really cool. Now, if you are inspired to have the best body of your life, that's a positive emotional driver. That's really cool too. The key is you gotta locate within yourself strong emotions for why you want to make this goal happen. When I've worked with top teams before, one of the key reasons why they want to sell and achieve goals is for some of them, they really want to retire their parents. Great driver. It means something strongly to them. Some people want to prove a point. They want to prove a point either to themselves that they are not done and dusted, that they still have relevance within them, or they can achieve these things. They really want to prove it to themselves. They want to be a winner. Cool. As long as I notice they have a strong emotional driver, it will happen. Some people want to prove a point to other people. Maybe some people have said something negative about them before. And so they want to prove that they are not that person that they've been told they are. And they want to prove that person they can achieve. Cool. Whatever reason it is. Whether you want to do it for inspiration, whether you want to do it to prove a point, whether you want to not become that person that other people say you are, you got to find that driver. For some people, they're succeeded for a while. And what they want to prove is they want to prove relevance, that they still can make it in this day and age. You got to find an emotional driver. One of the key things that makes the greats who they are, Cristiano Ronaldo's, your Michael Jordan's, your Kobe Bryant's, your Floyd Mayweather's, is the fact that even though they've achieved everything they wanted in life, fame and fortune, they managed to find a motivation. One of the key things in Michael Jordan's biography was the fact that every single night he went out and played. He would find some way, not always healthy, but he will find some emotional driver within himself to make himself really, really fired up to play. Whether it was thinking about one kid sitting in the stands who had been saving up his whole life to come and watch Michael Jordan play, maybe that would get him fired up. Maybe it was something that the opponent said, true or not true. You can watch The Last Dance, true or not true. He managed to use that to fire. Maybe it was something the other coach said. Maybe it was playing to prove a point. Maybe it was to smash a record. Whatever it is, he found a way to locate motivation and an emotional driver within himself to be really fired up to play. And your goals need to have a strong emotional driver. If you have ever written down goals and they have not happened, I would say one simple thing. You didn't feel strong emotion behind it. Now, after we have set goals that acknowledge the season we're in, and we have strong emotional drivers backing our goals to the degree that we need to make them happen, now we have to organize our life around making these goals occur. Goals don't happen by coincidence. They don't happen by accident. They happen by deliberate intention. And so you have to understand, first and foremost, the required resources to make goals happen. They are a few items. Number one, time. Number two, attention. Number three, capital and money. All of these things are really critical. You could throw in energy there also. Mean kind of the same as attention. So these are your limited resources. Now, the moment you understand that your resources are limited, you need to allocate them wisely in order to make goals happen. So one of the exercises I did last year was I took a piece of paper, I divided it in half, and I wrote down time wasters and maximum ROI for time, energy, and money. I went to list down every single thing, every single person, every single party or project. By party, I mean like engagement. This person wants to meet up with me, etc. I just wanted it to be all P's also. People, parties, projects, places. So the moment you set some goals that align with the season you're in, and also are backed by strong emotion, it's now time to organize your life to make these goals happen. Goals don't happen by accident. They don't happen by coincidence. They happen by deliberate intention. First, recognize you have limited resources in your life. In order to make goals happen, you need the following resources. You need time, energy, money, attention. These are limited resources. So, to channel all these resources to make your goals happen, you need to take them away from other things that might be draining them. Last year, one of the wonderful things I did was I did an exercise where I took a piece of paper, I divided it in half. And on one side, I wrote down everything that was a time, energy, money, attention, drainer. And in another part, I wrote down everything that was best ROI from time, energy, money, and attention. I wrote this down. I included things that were in the following 4P categories: people, parties, places, projects. So any person that I met, after which I was like, man, that was not a good use of time, I will write it down. Any project that I felt was going kind of nowhere, but just taking up a lot of time and energy, even money, I wrote it down. I wrote out all the different places I went to, all the different parties meant engagements that I went to. So, right, let's go and meet this person, etc. I went to write it down. I went to write down all the ones that gave maximum value, which meant I was a determinant of it, by the way. Which meant after I engaged with this person or went to this place also, I felt this was a very good use of time and energy and money, etc. And I went to write down all that were wasted. I wrote out every single one of these things. And I noticed another P word, which was a pattern. I noticed there were some people that every time I met them, it was a complete gigantic waste of time. Some projects that I dive into for the whole year, I just pumped so much time and attention into it. It went absolutely nowhere. There were some places that every single time I went there, I regretted it the next day. And there were some parties that frequently happen also. Someone say, hey, let's go and visit this place and then go and have fun. And afterwards, I left and said, man, I shouldn't have gone there. And those were all time wasters. And then I wrote down simultaneously that there were some people that after I met, I was filled with inspiration. Some projects that were growing and actually looked like they would deliver more returns if I put more time and energy there. There were some places that were excellent and good for me, and there were some party and engagements that I left and felt, hey, that was a wonderful, good use of time. I wish I'd done more. So what I did after I wrote this list, and it was really apparent to me, is in January this year, I went to cut virtually every single one of the party, places, projects, and people that existed on my wish list. I just say, you know what, I want to unplug, I want to decommit from these particular projects. I don't want to go to these particular places and parties. I don't want to engage with this kind of people anymore. Because why? Because I understand that my resources are limited. And if I want to make goals happen, I need to pull it from somewhere. I'm not going to get extra time and energy. I have 24 hours a day. So if I want to channel more of those things to the things that are important to me, I need to pull them out of somewhere. And so I will disengage from people, party, projects, places that are draining my time, energy, attention, and money. And I will channel all of these resources towards the things that matter. Super important. So after we reallocate our time, energy, money, and attention, the next thing we have to do, and the next thing I did, was to do another exercise called the trivial many versus the vital few. Now let me share a story with you. Earlier this year, I went to sit down with a client of mine who had taken from 2 students before to more than 300 students in a short few years. It's 150x in terms of their business success and revenue. And we did a very simple exercise with them, which is this exercise. We had them divide their business activities into these 2 categories. What were the things that were the vital few? Every single time we do these things, we make more money. And what were some we called the sexy many or the trivial many, which was, it was kind of fun to do, but we don't know whether we get a result. Now what we ended up with was there were a whole bunch of things in the trivial many, which were like kind of fun to do, social media stuff, TikTok lives, etc. And not sure if they delivered a result at all, but there was stuff inside the vital few that every single time we did it, it was proven that we got results out of it. And the problem with the vital few is that none of these things were particularly sexy. Some of the things were like improving their offer, or training team members, or writing to existing clients. These were all just like pretty simple, kind of like basic stuff. Every single time we did it, we got more results. But every single time we dabbled in the other kind of sexy stuff, we didn't know whether we got a result at all. I did the same exercise for myself. I concluded that every single day, if I would only do 3 to 4 things, that's all, the business will grow really, really well. But if I did anything else apart from the 3 to 4 things, which were fun to me or maybe entertaining to everybody else, we would not get a result. And so, first of all, we already free up time and energy from all the things that we're wasting. And now we got to take that time and energy that we freed up and plug it all entirely, all into the vital few. Now, if you do that, your business will exponentially take off because you're putting a huge amount of resources into the things that are proven to deliver results, away from all the things that are fun and cool and entertaining and probably a little bit FOMO, but not quite sure whether they deliver results at all. So right after we do this, and now we are taking resources, putting them into places where they deliver results, the final thing we need to do is to stabilize our own life. One of the sayings that I have during the sessions and the workshops I do with top sales teams and top entrepreneurs is we cannot fire a cannon from a canoe. Very simple reason. A canoe is unstable. And the moment your life, like the canoe, is unstable, you are unable to do big things. Now, I mentioned in some of my previous videos before that one of the mistakes I made once I made money was I started to add a lot of complexity to my life. The moment I added complexity to my life, I started doing complicated things with complicated people at complicated times and complicated hours of the day. My life became really, really unstable. I wasn't able to do the work that required me to do. And so one of the key things is if we want to do big things, we free up resources, we put them in the right places. We also need to lead a kind of life that allows for big things to happen. And in my experience so far, big goals happen when your life is simple, not when your life is filled with questionable people and you're doing all sorts of random different things also. Because why? You need stability in your life. So are you able to stabilize your life to the degree that these goals can happen? Very important. Now, what that also means is that the kind of person you need to become. Now, remember, I'm not here to judge you, but all I'm saying is there's a law in the universe called the law of correspondence, which means the goals that I want to achieve, I need to be that kind of person in order to achieve that goal. For example, a lot of people who are in sports, they want to set an Olympic goal. I want to be an Olympic medalist. But hey, in order to be an Olympic medalist, you have to live the Olympic medalist life and become that Olympic person in your work ethic, in your way of thinking, etc. If we set a goal and our life doesn't sustain that goal, it will not happen. If we don't become that person, that goal will not happen also. So, in order to achieve big things, you got to stabilize your life. Then you got to lead the kind of life that requires, that is the foundation fertile enough for this goal to happen. Millionaire dream requires a millionaire life, requires a millionaire person. Are you committed every single day to be this person? If you're not yet that person, to improve and become that person and to have a life that allows for these things to happen. And so those are the critical components. Aligning your life, the person you are, to that goal. If it's not quite that person yet, cut out all the complexity from your life, simplify things, study and upgrade yourself so that you are the right person. Your life is in the right foundation for those goals to happen. And for those goals to happen, the time, the energy, the resources, the money are all pumped towards the few things that make sense. When you have all of these things that happen, then your goals will naturally happen. That's the key. They will naturally happen. It doesn't require you to create 100 vision boards a day or write them out 200 times a day. It doesn't. The key thing that I realized that made a huge change is that when the conditions are right, the plant naturally grows. You see, your goals are like a seed. And a seed requires 4 ingredients to grow. It requires soil, it requires water, it requires carbon dioxide, it requires sunlight. When you have all 4 of these ingredients, there's a high chance the seed will grow. But if all these conditions are not available, the seed, no matter how well-intentioned, will not grow. So our entire goal with making goals happen, that made a whole shift for me, is very simple. We need to create the conditions that allow the goals to happen. We need to have our time, energy, money, attention pumped into places that make sense, the goals can flourish, and then we need to be the kind of person and lead the kind of life where these goals naturally happen. When you provide all of these things, the goals will definitely occur. And that is very different than most goal setting sessions where there's no emphasis on focusing your time and attention. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Let's create a whole bunch of goals in all different directions. And there's no emphasis in simplifying and shaping your life and the person you become to sustain those goals. When you write down a whole bunch of goals that go in all different areas and you don't change you or your life to make those goals happen, what you have is a bunch of pipe dreams, a bunch of wishes, a bunch of a wish list for somebody else to actualize within your life. And that's not how goals happen. So I hope this video is useful for you. Remember, you have limited resources. Pump them in areas where it makes sense to. Stay away from people, places, projects, parties that drain your energy. Ask yourself what season you are in. Ask yourself what are the drivers behind your goals. And last of all, simplify your life and upgrade yourself as a person so that these goals naturally happen. Hope this video is useful for you.